Let's stick with this now. John Blaxland, Professor of International Security and Intelligence Studies at the ANU, is standing by to talk to us. Good morning to you.
Hello, Kirsten.
How significant is this move by France to call its ambassadors home?
Look, it is completely understandable. We have dropped the ball. We've mishandled that relationship. As in the great line from the book Alice in Wonderland, if that's where you wanted to go, I wouldn't start from here. And we certainly have started from a wrong spot, but we've been fumbling the ball for about a decade and a half over submarines, flipping and flopping over what type of technology, what country source it would come from. But what's happened is, we are facing a very different set of circumstances to even what we faced 2 years ago. There's been a really sharpening in the tone, if you like, of the sense of security, the gravity of the security challenges we're facing today. And so that, I think, is driving Brexit in the mix as well. Britain has transformed its approach to Australia and the region. It's much more engaged than ever before. It walked away back in 1973 to join the European Economic Community. It's now back with a vengeance. It really wants to play in this space. I think we need to be sober-minded about how much it can, given it lives at the and faces security challenges of its own at the other end of the Eurasian landmass. Nonetheless, I think what we're seeing is a welcome addition to ties that have been long-standing with the United States and now deepening. This is, I think, also a reflection of about 2 decades of investment in the so-called war on terror. This is the bright side, if you like, of a dark cloud of our involvement there.
Okay, but in facing up to the challenges that Australia, the US, the UK say exist in the Asia-Pacific, has Australia also mishandled other key relationships? Nine Newspapers is reporting today that the Prime Minister's plan to stop off in Indonesia on his return journey from Washington DC next week has been called off after the announcement of the new defence posture. Is that a strong sign that our regional neighbours too are alarmed at what they've seen from Australia?
So, look, with Indonesia especially, there is a real tradition we have developed of just being clodhopping in the way we engage them. We don't treat them with sufficient deference and respect. They weren't consulted in this process, it would appear, and they are miffed. Now, having said that, we did this with the Marines to Darwin a decade ago. They were miffed, and they were miffed not because they were particularly objected to Marines in Darwin, but because they weren't consulted. And this is, I think, the thing we don't engage with our neighbours very constructively, or at least not as constructively as we should.
And so, is there going to be pressure on the Australian government to do just that now, to repair the damage? Absolutely.
So my sense is, in terms of national interests of the countries in our neighbourhood, by and large, there's a considerable overlap of interests. They, like us, face competing challenges of being dependent on trade with China and looking to the United States maintaining a security presence in East Asia and the Indo-Pacific, more writ large. To varying degrees, countries are aligned with or, hitting the fence on issues relating to China and the United States, but no one wants the United States to leave. Australia's actions in terms of bolstering the prospects of American endurance in the Pacific is by and large welcome. Now, countries like Indonesia and across Asia, they've all got to balance the diplomacy and the public face of this. So they're going to say things.
Does this make this harder, though, for other countries in the region? Are they going to feel pressure to actually declare whether they're lining up behind the United States or China?
Every country will take their own path, and they may feel the pressure, but they'll make their own call. But bottom line is, I think my reading of it is that they're quite comfortable with Australia doubling down on its relationship with the United States, because that gives them space as well. That gives them wiggle room in terms of their relationship between the great powers. They know that China is making increasing demands on them. And having the United States remain engaged and this additional insurance of its engagement in the neighbourhood suggests to them that they can maintain that kind of degree of ambivalence which works for everybody. It means that US ships can visit Malaysia, Brunei, Singapore, the Philippines, and elsewhere without having to worry about those countries having sided one way or the other. Australia, we're one step further away. We're clearly a committed US ally, and for us to be prevaricating would actually send the opposite signal that we'd want in the neighbourhood, and would potentially contribute to a capitulation to Chinese pressures. So I think it's not unreasonable for Australia to be looking to double down. Now, we've been pretty clod-hopping in the way we've done it, let's face it. And my concern is also that when we think about our engagement with the UK and US, we don't drop the ball about our engagement with our neighbourhood. Our neighbourhood is not going to ever be towed away. We've got to make those relationships work, and we have not invested sufficiently in our relationship with Indonesia, across Southeast Asia and across the Pacific. So, the Foreign Policy White Paper of 2017, what I call Australia's Plan B, was all about engaging with the neighbours, Southeast Asia, the Pacific, the Quad, etc. We need to double down on those. We need to be very careful about not playing this up too much. At the same time, I think we need to be looking to mend bridges with the French. Now, we owe them probably about $3 billion in penalties over the broken deal. Maybe just a little bit out of the box here. Perhaps we should maybe lease a Barracuda or two off the French, soften the blow. We need these subs anyway. We're not going to get any new subs from the Brits or the Americans for at least 2 decades. Let's do something creative. Let's mend bridges with France. France is an enduring Pacific power, let's not forget. It's got a presence in not just New Caledonia, but Tahiti and in the Indian Ocean. So we actually need to make that relationship work, and it's in our interests to make it work. Let's face it.
John Blaxland, Professor of International Security and Intelligence Studies at the ANU. Great to speak to you this morning.
Thank you, Kirsten.